Hello Animorphs fans and welcome back to another cycle review. This is cycle 10. There is technically no cycle 11 because there's only 2 books left. A Jake book and the final book of the series. So this is cycle 10 and it consists of 6 books. Conveniently in the UK made into 3 books, 3 double books. So you've got the Resistance, the Return, the Diversion, the Ultimate, and the Absolute, and the Sacrifice. Those are our 6 books. It's been a real up and down one, I will tell you that. And in these, we've got 3 books by Kimberly Morris, being the Return, the Ultimate, and the Sacrifice. And then you've got 3 other authors. I believe 2 of them are Lisa Hart. Who were they again? So we've got Ellen Giroux and for the Resistance, and then I believe Lisa Hart-Grader for those 2 there. So Ellen Giroux has proven herself to be a really great author, given the right sort of book, and Kimberly Morris is just fantastic through this, absolutely fantastic. So let's rattle off the scores for each. Resistance, 10 out of 10. The Return, we'll get back to. The Diversion was a 5 out of 10. The Ultimate, 10 out of 10. The Absolute, 3 out of 10. The Sacrifice, 10 out of 10. And that, well, actually, let's go back to the Return just briefly, because I said about the Return that my score largely dependent on whether it was a dream state, the latter part of it, because I thought it only made sense if it was a big dream state. But then in the Ultimate, Cassie revealed, and by the way, here's the same ghostwriter, so we know it's consistent. Cassie revealed that it wasn't a dream because she experienced it and Rachel had spoken about it, what had happened to David. So it wasn't a dream. So I thought I'd have to go back and reassess. I've had a think about it, about the Return, and I've decided that because it's Crayak involved, I don't think we can necessarily say it's a dream or it's reality. It's somewhere in the middle. It's sort of a half dream, half reality state. So I've decided that I'm not going to reduce the score. So it remains a 10 out of 10. So 10, 10, 5, 10, 3, 10. A lot of 10s. We've never had this many 10s in quick succession, but it's in between the Diversion and the Absolute. Some pretty poor books, let's be honest. The average score comes to 7.8, which is a lot better than some of the more recent cycles. It's sort of more up there with some of the first cycles we had. So pretty good scores. And 4 out of 6 books being 10 out... Actually, no. No, I was wrong. The Sacrifice is 9 out of 10. Sorry. 9 out of 10. I'm getting all mixed up. But it's still a pretty bloody strong book. Okay? So yeah, a really good round here. And of course, we are leading up to the very end. The plot here is largely revolving around Jake, whether you like it or not. The character development for this section for Jake is stunning. In the Resistance, we find out that Jake no longer really cares about Tom. Tom is a part of the past for him now, and he wants to move forward. We save the Hortbridge Valley, move it, but we save it. Okay? The Return deals mostly with Rachel's psyche. So it's not really playing to the major plot like the other ones are, but it gives a really good round off to Rachel's character. The Diversion is where we finally get Lauren, Tobias's mother. Not a very strong book, in my opinion, but it is also the book where we rescue the parents. And now everybody, as of that book, has moved in with the Hortbridge. So this whole group is now coming together. This resistance is coming together. The Ultimate, that's where we lose the blue box. Cassie essentially lets Tom take it away, which gives the Yeerks the power to morph, but we also establish the auxiliary Animorphs. So a really important book, that one, and a really good one for Cassie as a character as well. The Absolute is where the governor of California finds out about what's happening, but having just read The Sacrifice, it doesn't amount to much because they just throw into a mental institute. So actually a bit more filler than... Looking back at it, it's more and more filler the more I think about it. Because, yeah, the governor learnt about the Yeerk invasion and probably alerted a few people, but she just gets thrown into a mental institute and the Yeerks make a cover story. So It's almost filler. Not a great book. I gave it a 3 out of 10, and deservedly so. The Sacrifice is where we learn that the Andalites are basically planning to annihilate planet Earth. Quarantine. And, God, what else happens in that one? I've literally just read it. Oh, yeah, they blow up the Urk pool. That's quite big. That's quite a big plot point, that. They blow up the Urk pool. And at the same time, blow up what remains of their innocence. And wipe out loads of the Urks, but also probably hundreds or thousands of innocent people. That is where we're up to. And we're about to go into the penultimate and then the ultimate book. Not the ultimate, but the ultimate... The last book. Stop yelling at me, Medi-pleb. God. Character development. I'm going to save Jake for last because by far and away he's got the biggest character development. Rachel. A very fitting end for her character. Essentially, she knows that she's not going to survive this war. Either she'll get herself killed in combat or she'll become this evil being. This super Rachel-like character. This evil thing that cannot be controlled. And by the end of the book, it's almost like she's resigned herself to death, which is incredible. I thought it redeemed Rachel's character for the most part. She's had some really bad books recently, but this one brought her back. Rachel's back, baby. It really delved into her psyche and it gave her that moment of self-reflection. And she reflected a lot on what happened in book 22, that talk she had with Jake in the hospital, where he says, I don't know what's going to happen to you after the end of this war. That now catches up to her and she suddenly realises. A brilliant end to Rachel's character arc. Tobias, always been a mystery. Always been a mystery, and I still haven't figured the fuck what he's about. He gets Lauren back and he's now got a sort of family, but a family member who doesn't necessarily remember him or know much about him. And she's blind. Oh no, she was healed of that. So, yeah, that's Tobias. Cassie. We get the culmination of all of Cassie's moral dilemmas. And it all comes down to love. And not the Disney, oh, I love you, let's get married, happily ever after sort of love. It's the love that ruins you. The love that allowed Tom to escape with the blue box because she loved Jake and she would sacrifice everything for Jake. And then suddenly Jake turns around and no longer loves her. A tragic, tragic story. And that's what it's all come down to. Because we've known about Cassie. She has these big moral things like, oh, peace, love, and fucking understanding one another, for Christ's sakes. But then when it's something that affects her personally, she goes off the rails. Hawkbajir having gills put on them, rage. Somebody says something racist, rage. She flies off the handle. Jake, rage. She will do anything to keep Jake. And in doing so, she loses him. And again, I think that's brilliant. On par with Rachel's character development there. Marco, worst character development of this cycle. Because I really don't know what he is anymore. There was the Absolute had no character development for Marco, and this was his last narration. So it's almost like his character arc's already finished. So apparently his character arc culminated in him getting his family back, but I don't understand how that fits with his character arc. Maybe in a future analysis episode I'll discover what's truly going on with Marco, but I don't know at this point. He had no character development in the cycle or no rounding off of his character or anything at all. And Axe, as I said in my last review, his character arc started and finished in every book he's narrated. he's a living Simpsons series. Just resets for every book. So once again, in this book, he starts off being loyal to the Andalites and finishes being loyal to his Prince Jake. And we've had that story from Axe a million times before. So yeah, not great. So it's a mixed bag. But let's go back to Jake. Jake, my boy, Jake. What an up and down one he's had for this cycle. Absolutely brilliant. So in the Resistance, we get the whole Fitzhenry thing, the side story. where obviously Jake is trying to get his cues from, where he tries to bring everyone together, like Jacob, the other slaves, brings them together to fight off this daunting foe. And that's essentially what he's doing throughout the rest of these books. He's just making sure that everyone's on his side. He's bringing together these factions that normally don't like each other, bringing them together and making that final push. The Fitzhenry stuff, as this cycle has gone on, has become so much more relevant. It's becoming more relevant as these books go on. And it's one of my favourite books of the series, The Resistance. I absolutely love it. But in this one, there's a metaphor at the end where he's fighting the monster that Visser 1, now Visser 1, then Visser 3, this monster that he morphed back in book 1. Why did he attack that monster in Tiger Morph in book 1? To protect Jake. He does exactly the same this time, but what's he protecting? He's protecting the Resistance. Not a person, not necessarily a group of people, just the Resistance, the overarching Resistance. And that's where his psyche, his mindset now lies, and that continues throughout this one. He isn't really in the Return, so nothing happens for him there. The Diversion, yeah, again, not that I recall, not that much. The Ultimate, where he decides to bring in auxiliary Animorphs. Again, like with the Jacob stuff in the Fitzhenry story, he's just whoever he can find. He's now saying, right, bring him here. As long as we can trust him, just bring him here. We're going to bring him into this war. Screw the consequences of what happens to them necessarily. We just bring them in and we stand together and we fight. That's what happens there. That's why we get the auxiliary Animorphs. The absolute tripe, so let's just forget that one exists. And then the sacrifice, where the ultimate, maybe not the ultimate, but the next big step, his manipulative nature. Because in, which book was it? No, it was the Diversion, so I should have really mentioned it earlier, but his parents are taken, Steve and Jean, if I remember the names correctly. They are now controllers as well. He's lost his family. And if, as always, we zoom back to book 41, which is such a fucking important book. Whoever says that book is filler, fuck off out of it. It's such an important book, where he's got the choice at the end of save Cassie or save the world. Right? Cassie representing his relationships, those he loves. That's gone now, because he doesn't like Cassie anymore, because of her betrayal in the Ultimate. Rachel's a lost cause. We knew that back from book 22, that Jake saw as a lost cause. Axe betrayed him in book 46, knocked him unconscious, so he's lost the loyalty of Axe for all intents. He can't trust Axe, basically. Marco and Tobias have now got their families back, so they're no longer really connected to Jake as much. They don't lean towards him as much. The Hawkbajir never really trusts him anyway. Remember, book 47, Toby comes up and says, you don't give him enough credit, so he hasn't technically got the Hawkbajir on side on a personal level. The Chi, who gives a fuck about them? They're traitorous bastards. Basically, Jake has no relationships anymore. He has nobody. Nobody to save in that dream of his, so he's got to knock that fucking abort button. And to do that, he's going to manipulate. And in this book, The Sacrifice, he manipulates Cassie to keep her on side. Like back when you had Jacob in here, keep everyone together. Don't just bring them all in, as many people as possible. That's why he manipulates Cassie, keeps her in the fight, and they blow up the Yurt pool. Hits that big fucking abort button. It's all coming together, that Jake stuff, and it is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Favourite character by a mile. I don't think anything in the last 2 books is going to change my opinion on that. Fantastic character. Absolutely fucking brilliant. So that's that stuff out of the way. Let's do the final little bits. So, best book. Right, so there are 3 10 out of 10s here. Resistance, Return, and The Ultimate. I said The Ultimate was just about a 10 out of 10. The Return, I'd say it's just about, because of the whole dream thing. Resistance, one of the best books of the series for me. It's up there with 5, with 41. Yeah, so The Resistance is the best book of this 6. Which one's the worst? Goes without saying, the absolute garbage, as far as I'm concerned. It's just becoming more and more filler as time goes on. Best and worst cover. Okay, I think the best cover is The Ultimate. Let's just bring that over here for you. So, Cassie turning into the owl. I like owls. I think they're a very aesthetically pleasing animal. And I think the morph goes really well here. It's a nice, smooth transition. Whereas on the other side, look at Tobias morphing into the Alsatian, which just sprouts wings out of its neck, which isn't quite as pretty. The worst cover. Which one am I going to say? Which one? I'm going to say the Jake one. So The Resistance, great book. Not the greatest cover. For one thing, he doesn't look real. He looks like an artist's impression of Jake. There's something that looks like it just looks like he's painted, which is weird. Is it just me? I don't know. But the mid-morphs from him to Beaver are just goofy. They just look really goofy. So yeah, that's a great book, but not the greatest cover by any stretch of the imagination. Let's cover, finally, best and worst moments. Start with the worst moment. It's got to be from the Absolute, the bridge scene, where they all jump off this bridge, and Marco survives by grabbing onto a mast and swinging on it. And then Tobias jumps off and apparently has enough time to morph, or demorph from Hawkbeard to Hawk and fly off. And then Axe jumps in and just splashes into the water and he's fine. Just the logic of this, and it just made no sense, and it was just crap. And the governor being there as well was just a bit cringe. So that whole scene was just trash, really. Trash. So yeah, that's the worst scene. Best one. What did I put as my best again? It's got to be Rachel at the end of the return. Just the ultimate culmination of her character, herself, her remembering what Jake said back in 22, and all that coming to a head when she's got David just looking at her, wanting to be killed. And she knows that this is it for her. This war is it. Either she dies or she becomes somebody she cannot stand to be. And I thought, fair play. Rachel's character for so long has just been utter tripe and just been nothing. A real nothing character, really. And to bring it all back, full swing, just really good. Best moment of this particular cycle. But it's been full of great moments. It's had some bad moments as well, let's be honest. But for the most part, really, really good. I've enjoyed it. And there are 2 books left. Oh, nearly there, guys, nearly there. And once this series is, the review series is over, we're going to start on the analysis videos. There's going to be a big video reshuffle because I'm going to start doing more live streams as well once my computer's fixed properly. So in the new year, when that eventually comes around, just expect a bit of a reschedule. There'll probably be live streams on Saturdays. There'll probably be analysis videos on probably Wednesdays. And I'll see what I can do about Monday's videos. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed reading this cycle along with me, assuming you have. And well, I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!